My name is Kaelen Thorne, and for far too long, I let others define my worth. That was, until the man I trusted, my boss and a supposed mentor, didn't just steal the woman I loved, the woman I was days away from proposing to, but then had me unceremoniously thrown out of the company I poured my life into. The moment I walked out of that skyscraper, the city lights blurring through my tears, I swore a silent oath, they would all pay. Every smirk, every dismissive glance, every cruel word would come back to haunt them. Their faces would drain of color, their arrogance replaced by pure, unadulterated shock. Little did they know, they hadn't broken me, they had forged me into something far more dangerous. If you've ever felt like your heart was ripped out and stomped on by someone you trusted, hit that like button. And tell me in the comments, what was the moment you decided enough was enough? Growing up, I existed in the shadow of my older brother, Rhys. Rhys, the golden boy, the charismatic charmer, the natural leader destined to inherit my uncle's booming real estate empire. I, on the other hand, was always quiet Kaelen, the one who preferred books to sports, complex puzzles to social gatherings. My achievements, no matter how hard won, were always minimized, often used as a backdrop to highlight Rhys's latest triumph. I still remember my 10th birthday. I'd spent months meticulously building a complex, remote-controlled robot from a kit, a project I was incredibly proud of. All I wanted was for my family to see it, to acknowledge my effort. But that same day, Rhys had scored the winning goal in a junior league soccer match. The entire family, including my parents, gathered at a fancy restaurant to celebrate his victory. When I tried to show them my robot later, my uncle, the CEO of Evergreen Holdings, and a man who wielded immense influence in our family, waved me off. That's quaint, Kaelen. But can it close a deal like Rhys did today? My parents chuckled, and my mother added, "You'll find your niche, dear, perhaps in something less technical." It was a constant, stinging reminder that my passions were irrelevant, my talents unappreciated. This pattern persisted. While Rhys was groomed for the executive suite, sent to elite boarding schools and networking events, I found solace in the digital world. I taught myself advanced programming languages, delved into data analytics, and developed a keen eye for market trends. I saw patterns where others saw chaos. I even developed an algorithm during my college years that could predict shifts in the housing market with startling accuracy. When I presented my findings to my uncle during a rare family dinner, hoping for some recognition, he just scoffed. "Interesting little hobby, Kaelen. But real money is made with handshakes, not lines of code. Rhys understands that." He then turned his attention back to Rhys, who was regaling them with a story about a lucrative deal he'd supposedly spearheaded. The inciting incident, the pivotal moment that sealed my fate and fueled my determination, came after I graduated. I had dedicated years, often working for free, building a sophisticated market analysis system that fundamentally transformed how Evergreen Holdings acquired and sold properties. This system, my brainchild, was saving the company millions and positioning it for unprecedented growth. I believed, naively, that this undeniable contribution would finally earn me a legitimate place at the table, perhaps even a director-level position. Instead, during a company-wide banquet celebrating the record-breaking quarter, a quarter entirely underpinned by my system, my uncle took to the stage. He lauded Rhys, crediting him entirely for the company's visionary technological advancements, barely mentioning the tech team as an afterthought. Then, in front of hundreds of employees, including the woman I adored, my girlfriend, Lyra, he announced Rhys's promotion to Chief Operating Officer. I felt a cold dread settle in my stomach. Later that night, when I confronted my uncle, he simply laughed. Rhys has the charisma, Kaelen. You provide the tools. Know your place. Lyra, who had always seemed to understand me, was silent, her gaze distant. That night, alone in my small apartment, the celebratory music from the banquet still faintly audible from downtown, I shattered. Tears streamed down my face, not just from the humiliation, but from the crushing realization that my family would never see me, truly see me. The anger, sharp and incandescent, hardened into a diamond-like resolve. I wasn't just going to find my own path. I was going to carve a chasm between myself and them, one so vast and so undeniable that they would never forget the man they dismissed. Leaving Evergreen Holdings wasn't just walking away from a job, it was stepping into the void. I had no family support, no safety net. But I had my skills, my system, and a burning desire for vindication. I plunged headfirst into the world of tech startups, taking on multiple freelance contracts, often working 18-hour days, fueled by caffeine and the raw memory of their scorn. I refined my market analysis algorithm, adding layers of predictive intelligence, making it faster, more accurate, almost sentient. I built a network of contacts from the ground up, attending every tech conference, every industry meetup, shaking hands, demonstrating my prototypes, and proving my worth purely on merit. I faced countless rejections, moments where I doubted if I could keep going. There were weeks when my bank account was perilously low, and I considered swallowing my pride and crawling back to my family. But then I'd remember my uncle's patronizing laugh, Rhys's smug smirk, and Lyra's strangely distant eyes, and the fire in my gut would roar back to life. My expertise grew, not just in data science, but in identifying unmet market needs and developing disruptive solutions. I became known as a visionary, a digital architect capable of forecasting economic shifts with uncanny precision. Companies, initially skeptical, began to seek me out, drawn by the whisper of my analytical prowess. Crucially, I wasn't alone in this. I found my chosen family. There was Anya, a brilliant data engineer who saw the genius in my early, rough concepts and joined me, becoming my co-founder and an unwavering source of support. There was Marcus, a seasoned venture capitalist who, unlike my uncle, recognized true innovation and invested not just money, but belief in my vision. And there was Ilara, a marketing genius who brought my complex ideas to life, always offering an encouraging word, a thoughtful insight. They provided the unconditional support, the honest feedback, and the genuine respect that my blood family had always withheld. They saw me, not just my utility. Ilara, especially, became an anchor, her steady presence a balm to my still healing wounds. She listened, truly listened, to my dreams and my fears, never once diminishing them. Meanwhile, my family remained oblivious, lost in their gilded cage of perceived superiority. They would occasionally call, not to check in on me, but to subtly hint at opportunities if I ever came to my senses and returned to Evergreen. My father would offer condescending advice about real jobs, while my mother would lament my lack of ambition. I heard through the grapevine that Rhys was thriving as COO, making all the right connections, though I also heard whispers of his reliance on that old analysis system I built. The irony was a bitter pill, but it also fueled my resolve. They still saw me as the same quiet, insignificant Kaelen, incapable of anything truly substantial on my own. Little did they know, The quiet Kaelen they dismissed was no longer just building systems, he was building an empire. My company, Nexus Analytics, was slowly, meticulously, becoming a force to be reckoned with. We weren't just predicting market trends, we were shaping them. And as our influence grew, so did the framework of my plan, a plan that would expose their hypocrisy and their ultimate folly in a way they could never forget. The stage was being set, brick by digital brick, for a climax they would never see coming. The setting was perfect, the annual Evergreen Holdings Legacy Gala, a night where my uncle, my father, and especially Rhys, paraded their supposed triumphs. It was held in the grandest ballroom downtown, a place where deals were supposedly cemented and reputations burnished. I received an impersonal, mass-mailed invitation, a sign they still considered me an irrelevant distant relative. Lyra, who by now was engaged to Rhys and positioned as the future of Evergreen, was there, radiating a cool elegance I once found captivating, but now saw as brittle. As I entered, the air was thick with the scent of money and self-importance. Rhys, looking particularly smug in a tailored suit, was holding court near the stage, surrounded by investors and board members. My uncle, the CEO, stood by his side, beaming with paternal pride. My parents were nearby, casually dismissing their eccentric son to anyone who bothered to ask. Lyra, draped in an expensive gown, laughed a little too loudly at one of Rhys's jokes, her eyes occasionally flicking towards me with a flicker of something I couldn't quite decipher. I watched, calm and collected, as the pre-dinner mingling continued. Anya, Marcus, and Alara were already there, strategically placed, blending in seamlessly. They caught my eye, a subtle nod of reassurance passing between us. My uncle, noticing me finally, gave a curt, almost pitying nod. "Kaelen. Surprised you came. Still dabbling in those computer games," he chuckled, loud enough for those nearby to hear. Rhys just offered a tight, condescending smile. "Good to see you, Kaelen. Still figuring things out, I presume." Lyra avoided my gaze, turning her head slightly. Their smugness was a palpable, suffocating cloud. Then, the moment arrived. My uncle took the stage, microphone in hand, ready to deliver his keynote address, undoubtedly another self-congratulatory speech about Evergreen's unprecedented growth and Rhys's innovative leadership. The lights dimmed, spotlights focused on him. Just as he began to speak, Marcus, my VC ally, stepped forward, his voice cutting through the expectant hush. "Ladies and gentlemen, before our esteemed host continues," Marcus's voice boomed, "I have a small, but rather significant, announcement to make." A ripple of murmurs went through the crowd. My uncle glared, perplexed, while Rhys looked outright annoyed. Then, Alara, radiating quiet confidence, stepped up to a large, state-of-the-art display screen on the side of the stage. The screen, which had previously shown Evergreen's logo, flickered to life, displaying a sleek, intricate graph. Simultaneously, Anya's voice, clear and professional, came over the main speakers, not from the stage, but from a strategically placed auxiliary sound system. "Good evening," Anya announced. "You are currently witnessing a live, real-time projection from Nexus Analytics, powered by our proprietary algorithms. This data details the precise market valuation of Evergreen Holdings at this very second." A collective gasp went through the room. My uncle's face, a second ago ruddy with annoyance, began to drain of color. Rhys, mid-smirk, froze. Lyra's eyes, finally meeting mine across the room, widened in dawning horror. "As many of you know," Anya continued, Nexus Analytics has become the leading force in predictive market intelligence, a reputation built on unparalleled accuracy. A new set of numbers flashed on the screen, staggering figures of our company's recent acquisitions, strategic partnerships, and valuation. And it is with great pleasure that we announce our latest, most significant acquisition to date. The screen then shifted, displaying a prominent, bold graphic. Nexus Analytics acquires majority stake in Evergreen Holdings. The ballroom erupted. A cacophony of whispers, gasps, and frantic phone calls filled the air. My uncle staggered back, clutching the podium, his mouth opening and closing soundlessly like a fish out of water. Rhys's face was a mask of disbelief, his eyes darting frantically from the screen to me, then to Lyra. Then, I walked forward, slowly, deliberately, until I stood beside Marcus and Alara, directly in the spotlight. My voice, calm and clear, resonated through the microphone I now held. For those of you unfamiliar with Nexus Analytics, we are the architects of the very system that has underpinned Evergreen's recent success. The same system that was once dismissed as computer games, and its creator relegated to the shadows. I looked directly at my uncle, then at Rhys. You see, for years, you profited from my intellect, my dedication, and my innovations, while simultaneously diminishing my worth and elevating someone else. My gaze finally settled on Lyra, who stood frozen, her eyes wide with a mix of shame and a dawning understanding. Some betrayals, however, are simply too profound to overlook. A respected financial journalist, who had been listening intently, stepped forward, microphone in hand. "Mr. Thorne," he addressed me, his voice carrying through the loudspeakers, "is it true that the visionary technological advancements lauded by Evergreen's COO, Rhys Thorne, were in fact developed entirely by you, years before you left the company?" I met his gaze, a quiet triumph in my eyes. Every single line of code, every algorithm, every predictive model that propelled Evergreen to its current valuation, was my sole creation. A creation they built their empire on, while simultaneously telling me I had no place in real business. The journalist turned to my uncle and Rhys, his expression shifting from professional curiosity to undisguised disapproval. The public validation, coming from such an authority, was the final, devastating blow. My family crumpled, their faces ghostly pale, their carefully constructed facade shattering around them. The aftermath was chaotic. My uncle, pale and trembling, immediately tried to pull me aside, his voice a desperate whisper. "Kaelen, son, this is a misunderstanding. We're family. We can work this out." Rhys, equally frantic, attempted to assert some authority, only to be met with blank stares from the board members, who were now swarming me with offers and apologies. Lyra approached me, her eyes brimming with unshed tears. "Kaelen, I didn't know the extent of it. Please, can we talk?" I simply shook my head, my resolve unshaken. The time for talking was years ago, when my loyalty meant something. The shift in family dynamics was immediate and brutal. The wider family, who had always fawned over Rhys and my uncle, now treated them with a mixture of pity and barely concealed disdain. Many, realizing the depth of the deception and my true genius, rushed to offer belated congratulations and support, a pathetic attempt to align themselves with the new power. I maintained firm, polite boundaries. I wasn't interested in their belated recognition, it was hollow and opportunistic. My parents, for the first time in my life, looked genuinely ashamed, their usual dismissiveness replaced by a quiet, haunted guilt. Nexus Analytics, under my leadership, continued its meteoric rise. The acquisition of Evergreen Holdings wasn't just a takeover, it was a strategic integration, absorbing their market presence and further solidifying our dominance. I transformed Evergreen, shedding its nepotistic structure and infusing it with meritocracy, promoting brilliant, often overlooked individuals who had been stifled by the old regime. My chosen family, Anya, Marcus, and particularly Ilara, were by my side, celebrating every success. Ilara, with her unwavering belief and genuine heart, became more than just a colleague. She became my partner in every sense of the word, proving that true family isn't about blood, but about unwavering support, mutual respect, and genuine love. I found a profound internal peace I never thought possible. The burning need for their approval had finally extinguished. I no longer sought validation from those who had always devalued me. My self-worth wasn't contingent on their recognition, it was built on my own hard work, my own achievements, and the love and respect of those who truly saw me. My story is a testament to one undeniable truth: your worth isn't defined by others, especially not by those who refuse to see it. For years, I carried the pain of being overlooked, of being told I wasn't enough. But that pain, that deep betrayal, became the very forge in which my resilience was tempered. It pushed me to turn my hurts into purpose, my setbacks into springboards. True family isn't a birthright, it's a choice. It's built on a foundation of support, respect, and unconditional belief. And sometimes, the most empowering thing you can do is to walk away from those who diminish you, to build your own table, and invite only those who genuinely celebrate your light. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever felt invisible or betrayed, know that you are not alone. Your quiet strength, your unique talents, they are your superpowers. Don't let anyone dim your light. Hit that like button if you believe in creating your own destiny, subscribe for more stories of resilience, and share this video with someone who needs to hear that their pain can be transformed into their greatest power. What's your story of finding your true worth? Share it in the comments below.